Diana, I got your number from your resume on LinkedIn. My name is Sarah, and I'm an old student of, and like you, we had a relationship. I don't know the circumstances of your relationship with him, but it concerns me to see his behavior continue long after I knew him. I'm curious if you would be willing to talk to me about your experience. If not, I respect that.
Sarah, I am at a loss of words, but also have so much to say. Yes, I would love to talk to you about this. Were you a student in Iowa? This is Diana.
This is Sarah.
And this is Blooming After Grooming, our podcast.
Welcome back to Blooming After Grooming. Thank you for logging in. What am I trying to say? Signing in.
For opening the app and pushing play, because it means that you came back after two episode listens. Well, intro and then Sarah's episode.
And today is going to be Diana's episode where we learn a little bit about Diana and who she was when she, crossed paths with a real turd burger. And, we're just going to hear about you, who you were, what your life was like. Diana, Are you excited to have this conversation?
Excited. Yeah. You know what? Yeah. I am looking forward to having this conversation. But before we do that, now that I'm thinking about it, so this episode, the last episode that our listeners hopefully listened to, was our very first Groom Scroll episode. So hopefully that was great because we haven't recorded it yet, but you've already listened to it.
I bet we were really funny. I bet we were really insightful. I bet people learned things.
I bet you that we were both talking some mad shit and raising our voices at some point because of all the triggering things in the.
Yeah, maybe we've eaten a couple pints of ice cream since then. I don't know. I like the idea of us hyping up future us. Future us is going to be great.
I like it too. Yeah, we're doing future us a favor. But back to present us and today's episode, which is all about me.
God, Diana, it's not all about you. You're so selfish.
Today it is.
Okay. Tables have turned. So you're the one that likes to ask me all the insightful questions. So today I have to be an active listener. So it could be,
and today I have to be a effective verbal communicator, which will be good for me to practice. All right, I'm here to ask me the questions.
Bear with us, dear listeners. Diana, how old were you when you first met the teacher?
I was 16. Yeah, it was in 2006. He was my English 11 teacher and he was my journalism teacher. So I had him for 2 classes my junior year. And I'm a summer baby. I'm June, Gemini sun. So I turned 16 2 months before we went back to school.
I always forget how quickly you met him after he left my school district. Because I graduated in 2004. He left in 2005 and you met him in 2006.
Yeah.
I would have technically broke up with him in 2005. It's literally there's such a small gap in time between the last time I saw him and the first time you met him.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, maybe she will be willing to come on this podcast in the future, but we know that there was someone because I had him his second year of teaching. So he was already teaching he came to the high school in the year 05, 06. So yeah, it was shortly after you got out of that situation. And so he had a full year of teaching, and you and I have both met and talked to and had dinner with someone who he had, someone who had him his first year at that school, at the high school, who has her own story. But yeah, the year after, so I met him the school year 06, 07, is when the grooming started, was when I was a junior in high school, which would have been 06, 07.
Do you think that your grooming started right when you met him? Looking back at it now.
No, it didn't start immediately. I remember there was a class assignment. So each person would pick a song, and then we would spend like 3 days, everyone sharing their song, listening to the song, talking about the song, how it related to romanticism and romantic literature. Yeah. And so I picked the song Civil War by Guns N' Roses. And that's kind of what started it. Was like he
Mm-hmm.
then found out that like I was into Guns N' Roses, and then that was like his in, and he made me a Blind Melon CD.
We
Um,
love Blind Melon.
and he was like, "Did you know that the singer Blind Melon is in a few songs and the Guns N' Roses songs?" And so that's how like he made me a CD for Blind Melon, and that's we started, yeah, just talking over about music, and he wanted to keep introducing me to like other music, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so there was a little bit, but it kind of in a way it did like once he found a way in, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, it's funny because it's very similar to my story, right? Of he's presenting it in a manner where it's the whole class, right? Like he's asking the whole class these questions, but at its core, he's using it as a way to like A, find out what each female student in that classroom thinks is romantic, right? Which again, in the hands of the wrong person is super fucking problematic. Like, and
Mhm.
also essentially beginning that same grooming through music and pop culture, which is exactly what he did with me. Because that was another thing of like integrating music into the class, but it was always his music, right? And the music he liked and the music
Mhm.
he knew everything about and the music that he could up from on high hand down to
Yeah, like
you. It's not like
proselytize about.
yes. Yes. It was never like, "Hey, youths, why don't you come in and, like, share music you like?" I mean, I guess in your guys' case, it's a little different because he was kinda opening that up for you guys to, like, add music to it, but it's still, like, this very again, it sucks because in the hands of any other teacher, I wouldn't see it that way, but, like, him and knowing
Mhm.
his track record, you're just making, like, a giant love mixtape with your class, which is pretty
Yeah.
fucking weird.
Yes, and exactly, because, like, yes, in the hands of the right person, and the interesting thing is I did have another teacher who did the same kind of class. I was taking a sociology class, and it was the same kind of thing, bring a song that you think makes a comment on society, and I brought Maggie's Farm, the Rage Against the Machine cover, and that was much more, and now that I think about it, the difference between the sociology class and my English 11 class was that in the sociology class, the sociology teacher asked questions that would encourage like the students to do most of the talking for like
Mm,
us to actually have a conversation with each other. Whereas
mhm,
like English 11, the teacher, the abusive teacher was more trying to like lead us to answers that he could then just like expand upon. Like it was a
mhm.
different vibe. Like it did feel in the sociology class, it was more like, yeah, that's yeah, Susie, that was a good comment. Like, you know what I mean? Like it was more, but with the English 11, like everyone was just kind of listening to what the teacher was trying to
Mhm.
like preach about.
Ugh, shocker. Sorry, my rage was bubbling up.
No
Anyways,
need to apologize.
just take a breath, take an emotional Tums. Yeah, so it sounds like it was probably pretty from the get that he was kind of honing in on you and used music as a way to connect with you. When do you feel like the first time was that you 2 questions. When do you think the first time is that you realized that maybe you had a crush on him? And then second question, when do you feel like you noticed a difference in his behavior towards you versus everybody
Mhm.
else?
Oh, Sarah, the listeners are about to get a nice little preview of the similarities between, which is not even similarities, it's just a gross pattern.
Yeah.
Um, but okay, so before we get to that, I when I met him, it was the summer before junior year. I went through a really bad breakup. I found out that like the guy, I want to say he's my first boyfriend, but my first like serious-ish long-term boyfriend.
Mhm.
Like he lived in Chicago, so he would come over every weekend, and like my parents knew about him and all this stuff. Like it was a serious relationship for a high schooler. So I found out that he was cheating on me, and like my heart was broken. I was so depressed. I was just very like I was having a teenage existential crisis, and
Mhm.
then I am taking this English 11 class where this teacher is talking about like deep thoughts. I just found myself hanging on to his words and feeling like what he was saying was tickling a part of my brain and like
Mhm.
getting me to think about a little bit more adult themes and real world kind of stuff. And so for me from the beginning, like it was not, oh, this teacher's so hot. Like, oh,
Because
he's so
he's not.
cute.
Because
Because
he's
he's
not.
not.
Because he's
Not
not.
even when he was younger. Not
No, no,
even when he
no.
was younger. It was so that definitely wasn't it. Like it wasn't physical or that kind of attraction. For me, it was definitely more mental and emotional. And
Mhm.
once he started like giving me that special attention, making me the CDs and
Mhm.
showing me new things, introducing me to like new music and, taking an interest in me.
Because he's putting
Yeah.
effort into you. And let me tell you something, I think as we all know, guess what teenage boys don't do? Put
Guess
fucking
what adult
effort.
men don't do sometimes? Just kidding.
Not all of them, some of them are very nice. I happen to be married to a nice one, but yes, many of them don't try. Well, it's funny because it's like I feel like I have said very similar things to you, but it is so different when you hear somebody else say them, which is partially why we're doing this podcast. Because I think we all have more forgiveness and grace and understanding for others than we have for ourselves. But listening to you talk about, he was paying attention to me, he was this, he was that. It's effort.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the effort was a grown ass man trying to groom a child, but it's effort. And when you are used to being around young boys who don't put any effort into you, don't buy you birthday gifts, don't buy you Christmas gifts, like don't think to buy you even a single red rose on Valentine's Day, like they don't do anything. They just show up and then try to like grab your boob in the back of their car. Like the idea of being around anyone that thinks you're interesting, that's actually trying to learn something from you, who's actually having insightful conversations with you. Because also, I feel like when
That's
you're
giving you
young,
things.
yeah, because also I feel like when you're young, like, you just kinda date whoever's around, not necessarily people you actually have a lot of shit in common with, like, you're just kinda like, "I don't know, I was there, he was there, we started dating," right? So I think
Yeah.
it's very understandable for and also super normal, like, a lot of young people have crushes on adults, like, that happens, like, that's normal, and so, yeah, I just think it's an interesting proposition of, like, that is why it works, right? Because, like, young
Mhm.
people are looking to make connection. They are looking to, like, find their identity as an adult, and it's an exciting time. Like, you're learning a lot about the world, and, like, for the first time in your life, you have the control over the things you're learning about and your own interests. So when somebody really zeroes in on you and, like, thinks you're fascinating or makes you feel like they think that you're fascinating and is showering you with information and gifts and experiences, yeah, that's
Mhm.
intoxicating, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's exactly. Intoxicating is a really good word. And in my situation, I had just been cheated on, I had just been heartbroken,
Mhm.
I had just been, like, completely hurt by a boy, and before this guy, like, my parents when I was in high school, they were really traditional, like, Mexican, and, like, I wasn't allowed to date, and, like, talking about boys and relationship wasn't really a thing, and apart from that too, so, like, there was that, but then I just also always felt invisible to, like, all the boys. I
Mm.
was in a school where there weren't a ton of Black or brown people, and in like the English class, I was like maybe one of two Mexicans or two non-white people. And so I never felt attractive. I never was what the boys wanted, you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
and so for the first time, yeah, I was getting this kind of attention and it was just attention. Like in my 16-year-old brain, it didn't matter that it was attention from someone 16 years older than me or
Mhm.
someone not conventionally attractive, it was attention. It was intoxicating.
Yeah, and I think I said that in the episode where you were interviewing me, is that you asked me, like, what would I change if I could, or, like, what advice would I give myself if I could go back, and it's that idea of getting excited and accepting attention from people no matter who they are was an unfortunate reality at that age. I think for a lot of us,
Mm,
and I think, you even just saying your experience as a person of color within your school, like that goes back to what we were talking about last time too, of you were an odd man out, right? Like you were on the fringe. Like you are not that kid in the spotlight. You are not the kid a lot of people are paying attention to, which A makes you maybe a little bit more susceptible to his attention, but B, makes you a hell of a lot easier to take advantage of because nobody's paying attention to you. Like,
Right.
that's a huge part of it. Like, there's a reason you and I get along as well as we do. It's not because we just happen to be abused by the same guy. Like, it's because we are pretty similar, like, personalities, and obviously we're very different people who have very different experiences, but there is a pretty strong thread between us, like, as
Yeah.
far as vibe, which is fun and also very upsetting at the same time.
It's
It's
an interesting
complicated.
thing to have at the same time for sure.
Yeah, it's a complicated reality. Okay, so you were saying that, yeah, he's giving this attention. It's intoxicating. We've have understanding of where you're coming from and like your past relationship with the boy that cheated on you. And fuck that guy. What a loss on his part.
For real.
Did you have a lot of friends? I mean, you were saying so like you were kind of, one of the only people of color. Like, did you have a strong friend group around you at this time?
No, not really, because my freshman year, my best friend moved to Tennessee. So like we had no, it was sophomore year. Yeah. So sophomore year, she moved freshman year. So sophomore year was like my first year like without her. And the sophomore year was when I played soccer and like I had a team. But junior year I was kind of flying solo. Like I
Mhm.
wasn't in soccer anymore. Nikki had she moved to Tennessee freshman year. So yeah, I didn't really have like a best friend or like
Mhm.
close friends. I had friends, but like I didn't have like a close knit group of friends
Mhm.
and, no boyfriends or anything. So I was kind of flying solo
Yeah.
when I first met him. Wait, can
When
I we
Yeah.
sorry, do you want me to answer the part 2
Yes,
question
I was about to get back to
about
it.
okay. Okay.
Yeah, I was about to ask something else. I was like, "Wait, no, we never did that part." Yeah, so you've said how you noticed that you were starting to have well, I guess you didn't really go to that. It's like you're saying like, yes, you were appreciating his attention. Was there a point like clearly in your mind where you were like, "I have a crush on this teacher?" Like that you knew it or was it not until he started behaving differently towards you that you kind of realized how you were feeling? Chicken or the egg?
Yeah, I knew I had a crush on him, but there wasn't like an instant. It just I just knew it because I wanted
Mhm.
to keep talking to him. I wanted to keep hanging out like
Mhm.
around him. I wanted to keep getting things from him. I wanted to keep learning new words to impress him. I wanted to keep doing things to get his attention and to get closer to him.
When did you first notice that you thought he might feel the same way towards you?
I was in school, so I would come to school early. Like I had a car my junior year, so I would wake up early, come to the school. I would smoke cigarettes before so he would know that I was smoking, think that I'm cool cuz I knew that he smoked cuz he told me
He was
that
a
he
good
smoked
he
6
hit it well
cigarettes.
though. He hit it well. Like I didn't know probably until he started acting differently towards me because it was right because that's the thing of like he hid it from everybody else. So then if he tells you that he smokes, that means that he trusts you with a secret of
Mhm.
his. Like that in itself is a weird boundary thing too, right? Because he hid it at least when he worked at my school. Like nobody knew he smoked. Like he never smoked anywhere near the school. He like I don't know if he changed jackets or something, but like, he never smelled like cigarette smoke. So like I'm curious about that too. Like how did you find out that he smoked? Like was that some kind of insider thing or was he a little bit more blasé about it back then?
I truly don't remember how I knew for sure, but I knew he told me because
Mm,
he didn't smoke before coming to school. And
yeah.
he didn't smoke in the car. Like
Yep.
so he never smelled like it. He never had like a pack of cigarettes on him. So he must have told me that he smoked. And then
See, but that's
I
right there is like this like, "Hey, young girl, I trust you with my
yes.
secret, and I wanna tell you so that you know something intimate about me that none of these other
Yes.
students know about me." Like, ugh.
And it's something kind of, like, taboo because I'm
Mhm.
16, I'm not even old enough to buy my own cigarettes, like, it's not just like, "Hey, I like to bowl on the weekends." It's,
It's al it's
"I smoke cigarettes."
it's also, if you think about it, a really good I shouldn't say it that way. It's a test because he was telling you a secret and seeing if you could keep it, which is like a fucking test if you think
Mhm.
about it, because then it's like,
Ooh.
oh, do you know what I'm saying? Like, if she will she keep secrets for me? Because that's a very important
Yeah.
part of, once you start sexually assaulting your student, is getting them to keep that secret and lie to everybody in their lives about it. So that's interesting. It feels very like testing the waters a little bit. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah, and I'm smiling a little bit because there's this whole cigarette smoking thing in Miller's Girl, which is our first Groom Scroll episode, which we talked about last week, right?
To the listener, but in the
To
future
the
to us.
listener.
And Diana
I
did
know,
her
so I'm
homework
just
and I have not yet. So she
No, you
knows.
have you it's not you had there's we have so much time to do the homework.
No, I just
You were
mean like
dealing with
you
some
know
shit.
this information and I don't know this information right now.
Yeah, yeah,
Interesting.
but we already got into it, Sarah, in last week's episode. We already talked
The
about this
listener's like, why
thing
are
of
we talking
smoking.
about fucking cigarettes again? We already talked about this last week, but last week is the future to us, you guys.
But it's so funny how, like, funny may not be the word, but it is a thing. Like, it is a grooming tactic in a way. Yeah. So he told me that he smoked and it was this like casual thing between us. And so when I would show up to school, I would like make sure that like I smelled like smoke. So when he opened the door to let me in, because I couldn't just go in the school, the doors weren't open, he had to let me into the school that I smelled like smoke. So I was in his classroom early one day and he had told me that he was gonna treat me to his voice. He was gonna sing me
Oh
a song.
God. I forgot about this story. God, I hate him so much. This is your
Yeah.
time to talk. I'm gonna be quiet. Continue.
He told me that he was gonna sing me a song. So he closes his classroom door and he puts on Ryan
Of
Adams.
course he does. Of course he does.
He does. And he sings me the song Chicago
Of course
by
he does, because he's
Ryan
such a
Adams.
douchebag.
Yeah, Ryan Adams, how does it feel to be the soundtrack
Oh, Ryan
of
Adams doesn't care. Ryan Adams doesn't care. Mandy Moore would be all like, let me tell you something about Ryan Adams.
So yeah, he sang me Chicago and then he had his eyes closed like the whole time and then
Because he's so shy. He has to
because
keep
he's
his
so
eyes closed when he
insecure.
sings because he's so insecure while
And
he's
he's not a
trying
great
to
singer.
sexually assault a teenager.
Yeah.
He sang at one of our school dances that was
Ew.
supposed. Yep. I'm pretty sure I have photos. Or I don't. I've burned them all by now, but I'm pretty sure other people have photos for my class. And he also sang to me in his apartment a few times. And it was for sure Ryan Adams at
I
least
hate
one
him.
time. Yeah.
He's so fucking gross.
Ooh, and
What
Counting
a piece
Crows.
of shit.
Oh, and Counting
Ah!
Crows. That was his other like go-to karaoke
Yeah.
song was Counting Crows.
Yeah, yeah.
Such a douche
That was,
canoe.
I think, that was one of the CDs he made me. He made me
Yeah.
2 CDs
Mm-hmm.
of Counting Crows. Yeah, so he sang me that song and then he opens his eyes and he's like, I'm shaking." And then
Oh my
I
God.
stand up because I'm sitting down. I'm sitting down in a chair while he's like sitting on like a table singing to me with his eyes closed. And I stand up and he hugs me and kisses me on the cheek.
Gross. It's
So
extremely.
that's when I knew, like,
That's
okay,
a real
the
clear
gate's open.
indication. Yes, that's a really
Yeah.
clear waving of the flag. Wow. It's wild to me how much more brazen he was with you on school property, but he was much more brazen with me off school property, which is very strange. Like, I feel like, and we'll get into that, but like, I feel like he hid you away better off campus, but risked way more on campus with you, which I find really confusing. Like, because I
Yeah.
think when we talk to the police and different investigators, like on campus specific stuff seemed more important to them, I guess, when people are asking questions. They seem very like, did it happen on school property? And I think maybe it's just that there's extra laws or something that they could charge you with if it's on a school property, I'm not sure. But I feel like that was a really specific thing they kept asking about. So holy shit. So this is all before school. So you smoke your cigarettes, you go into school. Your teacher sings you a terrible cover of a Ryan Adams song and then kisses you on the cheek What is the rest of that day like for you? Like, you just have to
Oh,
go to class.
well, this is what the rest of the day was like for me. I'm excited. I'm giddy as fuck. I have a crush
Mhm.
on this person. They just gave me a signal that they have feelings for me too.
Yeah.
And so I am just flying high, so high that I'm in a computer lab later on with a classmate and I tell him, I have a secret. And he's trying to get the secret out of me, and I'm not saying anything. And then the teacher walks into the computer lab, and this guy, my classmate, is like, she has a secret and she won't tell me. And the teacher's face just turned red. His eyes got big. His like I can still see it. Like he just looked afraid and pissed. Like it was like a
Mm.
fear and anger look. And in that moment, I knew that I had to keep us a secret. Like I
Mhm.
couldn't like it was my job to make sure that if I wanted this to continue, like I couldn't be this reckless. I couldn't be this like even teasing,
Mhm.
foolish. How dare I let any of it slip? So then later on that day, because I would also stay after school. I would go in early and I would stay after. We're in the computer lab, and it's just me and the teacher. And he asked me like what that was about, and I said, "Oh, it was just something about my friend and something she did with her boyfriend." And yeah, after that, I made sure to not tell my peers that I had a secret anymore.
So did you have any friends at all at the time that you were a student that knew what was happening?
God damn, like I found out during the investigation that I didn't. I
Mm.
thought that I did. Like I really thought that I told someone for sure that it was happening, but I really think that, yeah, after that moment in the computer lab where, like, I saw his face change, like, that triggered something,
Mm.
and I was just
Fear?
yeah, I didn't tell anyone. Yeah, yeah, fear. That triggered some fear, you're right. It is fear, and there was a time, like, some of my friends and classmates, like, they saw things. They
Mhm.
could see it, they could feel a vibe, they could
Yeah.
see how he treated me differently, but, no one saw him sexually assaulting me in a car.
Yeah.
No one saw him kiss me. No one saw him, like, brush against my hand when we would walk past each other in the classroom, like that kinda thing. But, yeah, I don't know for sure that anyone knew for
Mm.
certain what was going on.
Interesting. Yeah.
Well, I was in high school. After I
Yeah,
graduated, yeah, I told people.
sure. Yeah, I had one friend that knew at the time, and same thing, like, I I don't know if I just told him that she knew, or I'd have to talk to her about it. Like, I can't remember if that's how he found out that she knew, or if she kind of was like, Shit, dude." I think she kind of, like, threw some sass at him, you know what I mean? Like, in class, like, he was trying to be boop, 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 and she was like, "Oh, really? Well, maybe I know something." Like, that kind of a vibe, and my god, the yelling and the screaming and the absolute, like, rage shit show that I got from that experience. Yeah, like, I even tried to convince my friend that I made the whole thing up after he yelled at me because he scared the shit out of me so bad. Like, it was such a, like, horrific fight that I was, like, terrified of him after that point, and, like, tried to go to my friend and say, "Oh, I made the whole thing up," and she was like, "No, you didn't, you stupid idiot." Like, there's no way that you elaborately made up these hyper detailed stories about all these conversations and all these interactions you've had with this person. Like, clearly he yelled at you and you got scared. And
Mm.
after I, like, told him that, I tried, because he was like, "You need to tell her that you made it all up." Like, he made me lie to my best friend and try to, like, act like I was crazy. Do you remember my friend, after, like, all this kind of resurfaced, she was like, "I'm not gonna lie, I aced a couple of tests I should not have that semester." Like, he for sure just, let just gave her everything she wanted because he fucking knew. Like, he was like, "This girl could literally destroy my entire career because she knows what I'm doing with this other girl." Like, so crazy. So, I just bring it up because it's like, I know his reaction to me when he found out somebody knew. So, I can only imagine, like, seeing that in a flash in his face, like, in class, like, even before anything has started. Like, yeah, he's a scary dude when he wants to be. Like, and there's a huge power dynamic and an age difference, and
Yes.
he's an authority figure, and yeah, it's very controlling, obviously.
Yeah, and when I was going through the investigation and trying to get in touch with people from high school and, like, what they knew or what I told them,
Mhm.
one of my best friends, I met her in journalism. She was a year younger than me. She was like, "Yeah, I remember I went with you to Planned Parenthood, and you told me that you were gonna start having sex, and I asked you, 'With who?' And you just gave me this look, and I knew who it was, but, like, you didn't say anything, but I
Mm.
knew." And because, like, she was in journalism, like, she was around us all the
Mhm.
time, like, and she was around me all the time, like, I wasn't talking to other boys. Boys
Yeah.
weren't talking to me, you know? So she's
Yeah.
like, there's one person who it could be, and the fact that you're not saying anything and being so secretive
Mhm.
about it." You know what I mean? So there was a lot of, like, those kinds of stories,
Yeah.
but no one was able to say, "Yes, it came out of your mouth. You told
Mhm.
me this,"
Which I
which
know was
makes it so fucking hard.
yeah, and I know that was frustrating for you during the investigation, and I feel like you blamed yourself a lot for not having told anybody, but at the same time, it's like, dude, that's what grooming is, though. Like, they scare you and put you in a position where it's your responsibility and your responsibility alone to, like, keep them safe, which is bullshit, right? Like, you're the victim and you are a child in that situation. But it is hard because in these situations, it can be so he said, she said, and if you don't have any quote unquote witnesses, um, it can make it feel like you're lying, or makes you feel like people don't aren't going to believe you because you don't have someone else backing you up. But even, I had my best friend who I told everything to within reason. I'm sure I didn't like I you know what I mean? I doubt I told her like some of the weird shit that went down just because, you cover for the people you're with when you're young and you want people to like them and you're trying to drink the Kool-Aid yourself, so you're kind of editing reality. But at the end of the day, like, everything she knew was stuff I told her. So if someone was gonna try to
Mhm.
paint me as a crazy maniac who was just lying about everything, like, it's really not that different. Like, it doesn't make a huge difference because unfortunately, a lot of sexual assault, there's not a lot of proof, right? Like, unless somebody's photographing it or they're videographing it, or, it's like a straight up assault where you're aware you're being assaulted at the time and you go to a hospital and have like a rape kit done. But like when it's something like this, you think you're in love. Like you think you're in a
Mhm.
relationship. You're not going to the fucking hospital to get a rape kit done, and you're not documenting anything because you have to protect them. So you're not taking pictures. You're not going
Right.
places. Like the whole
You're not
thing,
telling people.
yeah,
Yeah.
is insulated very much on purpose. So, don't I don't know. I don't want you to beat yourself up for not having told anybody at the time because you weren't given the freedom to do that, you know?
Yeah. Well, thank you. And it did take a while for me to not be upset with myself because, yeah, like when it was all happening, I remember being very, very upset with myself. Like, and part of it was also upset with myself for not realizing how
Mm.
much I protected him. Like,
Mhm.
I was convinced that, like, I had evidence. I was convinced that I told someone, and then going back through it all, I was just like upset with myself of like, wow, you really protected him. And that was hard to accept. But I understand now. It's because I was groomed and manipulated.
Yep.
And yeah,
And to a certain
it's
extent, you're protecting yourself, right? Because if you don't have to acknowledge that you were groomed and sexually assaulted, then you can just keep tiptoeing through the tulips of life, right? And keep lying to yourself. So, you know what I mean? Like, there's a reason that we believe the stories that we believe sometimes because it's self preservation,
yeah.
and that sometimes can extend to your abuser, unfortunately. So no one really knew it was happening. So you now know that he has feelings for you, obviously, because he gave you a one man show and a kiss on the cheek. Going back to kind of like who you were before you met him, what were your dreams and aspirations for when you grew up? What did you want to be when Diana grew up? Like, give us some more about who you were. Because I will say, dear listener, We are, obviously going to share our stories, but I think both of us have agreed to like, we don't want to get super into the weeds about our actual abuse and like details about physical acts that took place because we don't necessarily feel like it is important. We will obviously talk about certain aspects of it, but I think, more the point of today is just kind of like who you were. So yeah, what was the driving force behind Diana? Who was she going to be?
It's so funny because I've been thinking a lot about this question as I'm in this like period of, okay, what do I do now for work? Like what, and
Mhm.
I've been reflecting a lot about like, well, what was I doing as a kid? And like what came naturally to me as a kid? A lot of things, I would say most things do not come naturally to me. Like there's some people out there that are just like excellent singers. Sarah is an amazing artist. There's some people who are just like skilled at stuff. And then there's me who has to work really, really hard to be good at things. And so I was really involved in social activism, even as a young
Mhm.
person.
Yep.
I was president of the Peace and Social Justice Club,
Aw.
and there was an interest of like just getting more information, learning more
Mhm.
things, and one one day I was watching The Ring. The Naomi Watts movie with the
Oh, I
girl
remember.
who comes out of a well and somehow there's a videotape involved in
Uh-huh.
times where like videotapes weren't even a thing, I don't think.
Listen, VHS was still in the mix. I currently still own a VHS player, so, you know?
But was VHS in the mix? Like who made this
DVDs
tape? You
this
know
was
what I
like
mean?
DVDs were, like, taking over at that time period for sure, but everyone still had VHS in their
No,
house.
no, 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 no. What I'm saying is like the people in the tape in The Ring, the
Yes.
mom and the girl and the
It
house,
was
like
it was like
there
a
were no
chain.
VHS tapes back there in those days.
What are you talking about? It was modern times. What are you talking about?
Was it? I thought it was like
Yeah.
1800s.
Oh, you mean the ghost.
Okay,
I'm sorry,
scratch
you're
that.
talking about the ghost. You're talking about the ghost, not
Yes,
Naomi
I'm
Watts. Okay,
talking about no, no, no.
so I think you have to view this as more as it's like a chain letter. Remember chain letters? You get those emails that was like, if you don't
Mhm.
send this on, you'll die. It was like a chain letter, but it was a haunted VHS tape. And I realized while I'm saying this, if you haven't seen this movie, this sounds really stupid. But at the
It's a
time,
fun movie
it
though.
was a really big deal, though. Everybody watched that movie. Like, it was a big deal. We all saw it like 1,000 times in the theater. And yeah,
Yeah, but you definitely have to suspend your belief when watching it because
she
otherwise
crawls
there's
out
just
of a fucking
questions.
television and like scares people to
Yeah,
death.
but
Yeah.
why? Why that's okay, anyway. So I was watching that movie and I am like, "You know what? Naomi Watts, that looks like a cool job. She's a journalist and she can just like eat yogurt at her desk and tell her boss that she's not fired. He's saying you're fired and she's like, "No, I'm not." As she like ferociously eats
Oh.
this yogurt and then she gets to go on trips all day to like haunted cabins and stuff. Like that seems like a fun job.
It's such a crazy takeaway from that movie. Like, it doesn't turn out well for her. It's not good. And I love that the yogurt is like a real selling point to you. Like, damn, I want some fucking dairy when I'm at work. It
I
makes
want
my
to sit
face
at my
hurt.
desk and eat this dairy. Yeah. So actually that is why that movie is why I signed up for journalism.
Oh my god.
Was
Uh,
solely because of that movie. That was
wow.
my takeaway was this looks like a fun time and I'm going to take journalism. And
That's
now I've met this asshole piece of shit as a
so
of a
you
man.
technically could blame the ring for ruining a big chunk of your life. My god. Okay.
Yeah, so that's what I something journalistic related was what I was wanting to do in high school.
Okay. Well, then that makes a lot of sense, right? Like why you would have ended up in his crosshairs, and then also why he would have been an intriguing person to you because he very much presented himself like this fucking literary genius or something. Or it's just so funny thinking
Yeah.
back about it now. Like, yeah, the way that he really presented himself is that he was just so cool and like so above it all and so
Mhm.
connected and like blah blah blah. And it's like, brother,
An
you're not connected. Ugh.
intellectual.
It's like,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. I would learn new words to, like, try to impress him because he would use, like, big words and then be like, "Do you know
Mm,
what that word means?" To, like, students.
mhm.
And,
Yeah, 'cause he's an asshole.
um yeah, yeah, exactly.
Well, and it's weird to think back because you mentioned earlier talking to fellow classmates, like, you don't realize how much other people were noticing because if nobody turned it in or you didn't hear about it getting turned in or whatever, like, you just kind of assume that everyone was oblivious, and I was also surprised when I talked to former classmates of mine that were like, duh." Like, I had fucking eyeballs, didn't I? I was in the room, like, he clearly treated you differently than everybody else, and it made me uncomfortable, or, "Yeah, I totally assumed you guys had something going on, but, like, it wasn't that big of a deal in our community, so I didn't think anything of it," or but then there were some kids that were totally oblivious and had no idea. So it's interesting to think about those little moments that at the time when you're in it, you don't think anyone's paying attention, but there's usually a kid or 2 in the
Mm.
room. And honestly, it was the kids that in my case that had noticed were the shy kids that no one was paying attention to. You know what I mean? Like maybe a little bit off on the fringe that were noticing it, right? Because the other kids were just like dicking around with their friends or like yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting to think about who was paying attention and who was noticing things and whether or not you and I would have if the tables had been turned, right? Like would we have noticed anything if this was a different student this had been happening to or would we have been one of the oblivious kids? Like it's just interesting to think about how it impacted so many other people besides you and me. There were people that I talked to from my class that either felt really bad they had not noticed anything or felt really bad that they had and they had never said anything, which again is not the responsibility of the children in the situation. And I would never in a million years ever hold any grudge against any other student in that environment. But it makes you realize is that like he hurt a lot of people and so do all these other groomers, not just we're not just talking about this one guy, like it impacts so many more people than just the one kiddo being abused.
Absolutely. After the police investigation wrapped up, I went to Facebook and went to the alumni page and didn't say any names, just was like, "Hey, if you know who I am and you remember this particular thing about me being involved with the teacher, if you have any memories or any information from that time, like, get in touch with me, please." Immediately got respond like that out. I got
Mm,
responses. I shared my email address and I got emails and exactly of this thing of former students, now adults in their 30s saying, like, yeah, I absolutely remember you guys always being together, always being like close to each other, like whispering to each other. Like I remembering things I'm like, I don't even remember.
mhm,
And yes, also, sadly, so many of my former classmates saying things like, "Sorry I didn't do more. Sorry I didn't say
mhm,
anything back then." And exactly what you're saying, like me responding with, "It's you were also a kid. You were also a kid. It wasn't your job." Which, like, if the kids were able to pick up on what was going on,
mhm.
the adults were able to as well, you know?
You would hope
And
so. I was able to get in touch with a few of my former teachers. Quite a few of them did not respond to me, which whatever, I'm sure there's many answers to that riddle, but, there were a few that did respond to me. And they felt terrible. I mean, you know what I mean? They were just like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry. Like, I had no idea. If I had had any clue, I would have said something. I would have." And so I think it's also hard because depending on the dynamics of your school, a lot of those teachers, at least in my school, like, they didn't leave their fucking classroom. Like, they're just in their own room all day, right? Like, teaching class after class after class after class. And there wasn't a lot of opportunities where teachers were like together with students like, we were such a small school that, like, if you were doing after school program, there was 1 fucking teacher there with all the kids. It wasn't like 2 or 3 teachers in charge of this thing, seeing their coworkers engage with other students. So it's like, so I think it could just really depend on the dynamics of your school and kind of the way things are set up, but within mine, it's like it was all very isolated. Like, everybody was really in their own corners, you know what I mean? And not really seeing each other interact. So the only way that I would feel like some of my teachers would have been able to know would have been word of mouth. But then I also know that like at least one of them fucking knew like after I graduated because she fucking mentioned it to me. And so it's like,
mm,
but I don't know if that came
yeah.
out after I graduated, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, it is weird to think about if the entire student body knows, is it possible that not a single adult knew? It's hard
Yeah.
to kind of
Well, and
believe.
with my school specifically, like, I know that there was a teacher who was, like, weirded out by him, but then would just talk to other kids about it, be like,
Mm,
"Why does he always have kids in his class?" And, that kinda thing, and there were teachers or staff who admitted to, like, getting weird vibes or, like, weird
mm,
feelings or just, like, seeing things that were kind of upsetting, but, like, not doing anything about it, and like you and I spoke to some former students, he would talk about dating a former student, like,
mhm.
openly, and so, like, people knew, you know what I mean? Like, there was the point is that no former student, now adult, should feel bad about not doing more when they
Yeah.
were also a kid.
Now, if you were an adult at the time and you fucking do something, you didn't do something, you got some shit to work out. Because that's the thing, is like we've talked about a lot, is I think a lot of times adults are very fearful of making accusations or asking questions or even implying that there might be something wrong because they don't want to ruin people's careers. And you and I have hit that wall about 1,000 times, right? Like even some of the people that I talked to from my old school, I had one or two people say, "You're going to ruin his career."
Ugh,
This is
I
20 years
hate
after they've known
that.
this person, right? Why do they give a shit about this guy? They haven't seen that guy in 20 years. And I had to really explain, like, A, I'm not ruining his reputation or his career. He has ruined his career by choosing to groom and sexually assault children, minors. He is abusing his power. He's literally breaking the law. Like, that is on him. That is not on me.
Mhm.
All I am doing is speaking the truth and having him held accountable for his own actions. And I feel like even just having that simple conversation, the two people that I had that had kind of come back with at that with me were kind of like, "Oh, you're," you know what I mean? They're kind of like, "Oh, that helped them kind of like reframe it in
Yeah.
their minds." But also, here would be my biggest thing is somebody's career is nothing compared to the entire rest of a child's life. Like you were talking
Mhm.
about mental health, physical health, emotional health, statistic rates of like self-harm, statistic rates of cancer and heart disease go through the roof for kids that experience sexual assault. Like it's nuts. Like this is the rest of
Yeah.
their lives. And unfortunately can lead to a lot of generational stuff if they don't get help and they don't process things, and like the ripple effects of that can be so much more profound than some dude has to get a different job.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
that's fine. There's a lot of jobs. Like you can get another job, you know? Like yeah, so I think there's an unfortunate value put on, and we've talked about this before. This obviously happens the other way around where it's female teachers. And it can be female teachers with female students and male students. I'm not trying to be heteronormative with our villains here, but like statistically speaking, it is mostly men. And our culture values men's jobs and careers over
Mm, lives.
over victims' lives. And it's
Yeah.
disturbing. And it's very, very, very disturbing. And it's very deeply rooted. And it's been very difficult, I feel like, when we have hit those conversation points with people. We've had so many frustrating conversations. Okay. So if you could go back, I'm going to ask you the same question you asked me because it was a hard one to answer. If you could give 16-year-old Diana any advice or wisdom, what would you tell her?
I think I would tell her, and she wouldn't listen, but I would tell her that her worth is not dependent on what like, the attention or love from anyone else. I would tell her that one day she's gonna be hotter than all these bitches and gonna get attention left and right from he's and she's and theys and everyone in between. To just, I would tell her to not pluck her eyebrows because one day everyone is gonna want these beautiful thick eyebrows. So I would try to give her some uplift her self-confidence a little bit and tell her that fuck what everyone else thinks. It doesn't have anything to do with the self-worth of of an individual.
Yeah. I think that's very good advice. And I would say it's very similar to what I answered. I think it's hard to watch young girls and women. I mean, shit, there's women my own age right now that I feel like really, really value the attention of others, specifically men, over their own happiness and their own needs and their own wants. And I think it's a bummer because we've all done it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not like, "Ugh, I'm so fucking evolved. I'll never, whatever. Life is stupid and things happen." But like, it is hard when you see those patterns happening in others. And it's hard when you see those patterns that yourself have played out. Because, yeah, you don't ever have to make yourself smaller for somebody else or change who
Yes,
you
that's
are.
what it is.
Yeah. Or change who you are for somebody else. But when you're 16, you don't know who the hell you are, right? And so you're trying to figure
Yeah.
it out and you're kind of trying to glom onto other people. And it's super normal.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's me in a few nutshells.
Oh, yes. What about did you have a mall shop? Did you have like a spot at the mall that was your
Oh,
spot?
I mean, I loved Hot Topic.
Who didn't,
I have
baby?
I have an older sister, so I would go into her closet sometimes and steal some of her outfits.
Nice.
Charlotte Russe. I really liked me some Charlotte Russe, some
Mm.
Kohl's,
Some
some J.C.
coals.
Penney. Yeah.
Do you
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
Wet
Those would be my
Seal?
stores.
Was
I
Wet
do
Seal
remember
still
Wet
around?
Seal.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
had
Do you
a
remember?
full length fake leather duster, like Matrix style, from Wet Seal that I wore all through high school. It was very ridiculous.
I could totally see that.
I'm excited that we got to learn about a little bit about you, your dreams of yogurt eating at a desk while reporting on ghosts who haunt VHS tapes.
And Wells.
Wells, stay away from Wells and VHS plays. You'll be fine. I think it's just nice to get a picture of who you were at the time because I think it does play a lot into kind of what happens next. And I
Mhm.
think that at least for myself, I don't know for you, but like through the process of finding you and like talking about all this stuff and really finally processing and like going to therapy and yada yada yada, like a big part of my healing has also really been reconnecting to who I was before I met the teacher and really like making space for like my inner child. Like it sounds so cliche, right? Like it's like such a thing like you have to heal your inner child. But it's fucking true. Like
Yeah.
I started listening to a lot of music that I liked in high school when I was processing everything and went back and like watched movies and there is so much self-blame, I think, when you're a victim of grooming or any kind of assault at any age, that I think it is really important to kind of reconnect with who you were at the time that it took place and like find grace for yourself and kind of reconnect with who you were. So I think that's why it's cool to kind of talk about who we were back
Yeah,
then.
totally. And I think for me, I also see it as who was I going to be?
Mhm.
Like, who had I not been diverted, my path not been diverted, my growth not been stunted, who was I on my way to becoming? And how can I go back to that and
Mm.
grow from that? Yeah, I do think that is very important. And I think next week or next time, we are going to be getting into our aha moments, right?
I think so. Sure, whatever you say, boss. I think so. Yeah, because I think that is a big part too. Is like, when did you realize that something was wrong, right? Like, when did you
Yeah.
realize this is fucked up? I also feel like your story is so much longer with him, and so I feel like me just saying like, oh, I almost thought about that today. Like me saying, well, when did you realize that something was wrong with the relationship? Like for me, it's easy because I was like, okay, well, a year later, I went to college and like I was hanging out with people my own age, and I was like, ew, he's old, and I broke up with him. Yours is like a lot more like holy shit, like there's a lot more of a story there. So I feel like that also probably needs to just be like talked about separately. You know what I mean? As
Oh,
like its own
yeah. We
thing.
should talk about that of, like, just the yeah, because
You were with him for a very long time.
yeah.
And like your life really was diverted in a very different way. And like, and I think that's something to kind of talk, that would be a very like apples to apples kind of thing of like, he tried to talk me out of going to college. He tried to get me to move in with him. Like, he tried to like suck me into the vortex and I like skedaddled, you know what I mean? Whereas like
Mhm.
you got sucked into the vortex. And so I think like I think that's an interesting kind of dynamic to talk about too, of just like those
Yeah.
different realities. All right, Diana, I really enjoyed listening to your story just about like who you were when you met him. We are going to talk next time a little bit more about the the entire breadth of your, I can't use the word relationship, captivity with him, perhaps is the word I would prefer to use, as you were entangled with him a lot longer than I was. And so my story has a pretty short ending, and yours is a little bit more complicated and longer. So I don't want to try to like mash that into the end of this episode. So next time we're going to talk about, when you finally got to that point when you realized there was something wrong, with your quote unquote relationship with the teacher, and where you were at and kind of how life had progressed for you until that point. And then we can kind of just talk about the ways that life twisted and turned from high school on. How does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds good. There's more to tell for sure. This is only episode 3-ish. So
True.
yeah, this is a good stopping point though. So yeah, thank you for the thoughtful questions. It is really helpful because I obviously like I've thought about all this stuff so much, but there is something to like thinking about it intentionally and thoughtfully and with the help of questions from someone that I trust. So,
Well, you did such
thank
a
you
good
for
job
asking.
talking out loud and forming
Thank you.
sentences, which I know is a thing you don't always feel confident about. And it is awkward to do like in front of a microphone because you're also thinking about how other people are going to perceive what you're saying, and you're trying to be mindful of what you're saying and how you're saying it. So I think you did a fantastic job.
Well, thank you. And thank you all, dear listeners, for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed our first Groom Scroll episode, and hopefully you'll enjoy the next one, which is coming out after this episode.
Yeah, a little lightheartedness to counteract all the terrible things we're telling you. And we did want to just put out there that we want you to take care of yourselves. So, if this is something that is fruitful to you, keep listening. If this is something that is triggering and upsetting to you, let it go and leave it behind. There are some great resources out there for help if you have experienced sexual assault. Diana, would you like to share some resources?
Yes, I do think that it's important to mention, obviously this is like I need to stop saying obviously. This is our podcast and this is like we're talking from our experience and what we know, and that is a different place than everyone else. Like if you are listening to this and it triggers a conversation that you had with friends or a teacher or whoever, just make sure that you are taking care of yourself and break if you need to. But yes, a resource that we want to share is RAINN. So that's RAINN.org. It is a resource for victims of sexual violence. There is also a national sexual assault hotline that you could call 24/7. It's free, it's confidential. So we love having you, but please make sure you are taking care of you.
Yeah, we're not here to worsen anyone's trauma. We're just here to share our reality and educate people and, do some trauma response laughing. But yeah, we
That's my
never
life.
want, yes, we never want our podcast to be something that's adding to anyone's pain. We care about the good people that are listening. So you all take care of yourselves. Come back if you want to. If you don't, thanks for giving it a shot.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
One day we'll have a better sign off.
Because my nail beds are so thin. It was awful. Like it burned.
Oh,
it felt
yeah.
awful. Yeah.
Well, then, yeah, you're not a good candidate for your nails getting done
No.
often because they get even thinner. And then, like, you're trying to open a beverage and your fucking nail bed just falls off.
That's disgusting.
So.
I hate everything about it. I hate everything about it.